Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much for being here today. My name is Kelan, and we're going to be talking about analyzing the contemporary causes of student anxiety and solitude. I would like to put my own kind of swing on it if you guys don't mind. Whereas I'm just going to give my own background. Once again, my name is Kelan. I'm a first year FSU presidential scholar. My major is mechanical engineering, and I come from a low income background as well as a first generation student. This also means that I come from a predominantly black high school, Blanche Ely High School from Pompano Beach, Florida, Broward County. These important facts will be very like essential to the presentation I have going on here today. It's going to be very straightforward, but the main agenda here is we're going to be defining anxiety and solitude first because it might not appear the same for everyone. Afterwards, we're going to be talking about a bunch of different pressures. This comes from academic pressures, financial pressures, opportunity pressures, social pressures, and outcomes. And the purpose of today's presentation is to inform you guys about these issues and at the same time ask you guys to find how these issues may affect your lives or the lives of some of your other peers and friends. So let's begin. First, defining what is student anxiety and solitude. Student anxiety is the constant fear that poor performance will lead to losing time, opportunity, or belonging. Usually, when we think of student anxiety, we may think of just a kid stressing out or pulling out their hair or freaking out. But it really doesn't really have to be like that. Those might be examples we might see in cartoons, examples we might see when we're children, the first things that pop up in our heads. But it really isn't just that. Some of these forms of student anxiety include the constant comparison and self evaluation of oneself, feeling anxious or guilty for sleeping or not doing much, and also toxic forms of perfectionism. There are 24 hours in a day, and honestly, we are human individuals. Sometimes we barely get that 8 hours of sleep we want. Sometimes we don't even are able to like get through a simple checklist of 3 items. We're human, and that's perfectly fine. However, student anxiety causes us to feel guilt, to feel horrible about the fact that we can't do these simple things just because we may not be functioning properly. At the same time, student solitude is intentionally created by isolation, whether it's caused by peer pressure, fear, or even more comparison. This may become working alone or staying quiet all the time, maybe losing time to socialize due to overworking, and feeling like your friends or family don't understand your situation. For my high school students in the audience that may be planning on going to university in the future, you may understand that it's going to be a big shift in your life, as well as the fact that you may feel as if that there's a lot of people that just don't even understand, even the friends you make in university. It's going to be a grand shift, and honestly, you might not see. It's very easy for people to just tell you, "Hey, it's going to be okay," or "Hey, you got this because you did X, Y, and Z throughout your time in high school, middle school, and so on and so forth." But it's not that simple. So first, academic pressures. What I first want to talk about is weed out culture. Weed out culture is the idea that even though we all came here at the same time to get a degree or to get a diploma or whatever the objective was of our education, not everyone's necessarily going to make it out. As a mechanical engineering student or a STEM student, I've been in many classes where the it's not just simple one plus one. It's some crazy equations, whether it's from calculus or differential equations or thermodynamics. And ultimately, when you study your best for a midterm and you get your score back, you're not necessarily so happy. Weed out culture makes you feel sick. I know like in a study with like 800 like STEM students, a lot of first generation students really reported that they felt really high feelings of imposter syndrome. If you're not familiar with what imposter syndrome is, it is the feeling that you do not feel worthy of your position. You do not feel worthy of the area that you want. You believe that all your hard work means nothing because you constantly compare yourself to your peers that come from different backgrounds and have different stories that you don't truly know because you may not know them that well. And you honestly feel that kind of way. And this also leads to more solitude. You always end up really branching out and really kind of trying to avoid other people. And you're always setting high, unrealistic expectations for yourselves. You take heavy exaggeration. You take like 10 very difficult classes and you expect yourself to get A's in all of them, as well as try to get a billion service hours or so much more and so forth. And that's just not real realistic. And these academic pressures keep on hindering down on all of us. Next, financial pressures. Scholarships sacrifice depth and feel of wasting opportunity. Scholarships, you might think of them as happy as first. You might think, oh, I got X amount of money to go to college, and that makes my life easier. But there is some pressure behind that. Not all scholarships are just simple give me outs. They usually have a requirement. Sometimes the requirement is a 2.0 GPA. Sometimes the requirement is 20 hours of service every semester. And depending on that requirement and depending on your course load, you might feel additional stress because it might be more difficult to weigh in on. Me personally, as an engineering student, I used to get A's all the time in high school, but they're not as easy to obtain anymore due to the harder course load and course rigor. And it's more stressful for me because when the GPA does fall down, I worry if I'm able to keep the scholarship that is able for me to help me go to college, especially when my parents don't really have those financials within them. There's also sacrifice debt, which is the concept of the fact that your parents or a parent or whoever was your guardian has poured in so much effort into you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the household, it could be your peers or your community. They've supported you so much this whole entire way for you to make it out or become successful as a person of color or a person in any sort of minority community. And you feel like because they sacrificed so much for you, you have to keep on pushing on. And we'll get into this more because this is gonna all tie back into a fear of wasting opportunity. You feel like they spent so much time on you, they invested in you. This was your goal, your purpose since day one. And now you feel as if that if you do not do these things properly and you make these same mistakes and you just waste time, that you're feeling like you're wasting opportunity, all from just a single-dollar bill. Opportunity pressures. We have survivor's guilt, success for your community, and the fear of wasting opportunity. Again, yes. Survivor's guilt is the concept where you feel like out you made it out of a not ideal situation and you feel guilty because of it because you feel like you might not have been the one to deserve that kind of purpose. Usually when we think of survivor's guilt, we think of simple life or death situation. For example, horrible plane crash happens and you're the only survivor. You feel survivor's guilt because of that. Maybe you shouldn't have been the only survivor, but survivor's guilt comes in different forms in different ways. Me personally, from my high school, Blanche Ely High School, yes, I was a very successful student. Yes, I was very fortunate and grateful and blessed to receive the benefits for me to go to college full ride. But at the same time, I always feel survivor's guilt because there are many peers that don't even get the chance to graduate. There's peers that unfortunately pass away before they make it to 18 in high school. Even if they do graduate and get their diploma, there are peers that are ended up working in the same like low level horrible label jobs that are like very low wages and ultimately just continue this cycle. I don't really believe that we've really made it out as a people. That's a survivor's guilt that I feel. And it may feel different for you if you feel it forms of that. Success for your community. You are constantly, as a person of color, always supposed to represent your community, and that is not even by choice at times. So when you are constantly pushing yourself and keep on trying to do your greatness, and you, and once again, we tie back to previously when we're talking about wasting opportunity, you feel as if that success for your community is has to be the case. You will throw everything about yourself. You'll be selfless in a very toxic sense that will require you to really push yourself and stress yourself out a lot more. And these are more pressures that come for opportunity. You are given this chance that not everyone gets, and you know the depth and the severity of these pressures. So it's your goal to make it out, and that is a very stressful thing. Social pressures. We have many here. We first have masking your struggle. You might not want to look like you're struggling in college because people might not trust you. People may laugh at you. You might don't want to come off as a persona, especially if you're a lot more successful in high school or in your past. Being one of the few demographics and spaces, if I pull up the FSU pie chart, the truth of the situation is that students are black, and especially in fields like STEM, percentage lowers and lowers. So just the idea of being the only person of color, it once again is going to tie back to some of those earlier things where we talked about opportunity and financial. You're going to just feel singled out, and that's going to not make you feel so good. Also, identity balancing. If you don't know already, as an engineering student, I go to the FAMU-FSU College of Engineering. FAMU is the number one public HBCU, historically Black university and college. Um, and honestly, when it comes to that, there are more complexities when it comes to dealing with identity from not feeling black enough or not feeling like you deserve this spot or not feeling like you have enough struggle. And that creates more conflicts, both mentally and socially within oneself. Productivity culture, again, this is very similar to weed out culture. And I'll tie this also into social media comparison, where we are feeling in a time where even though we always have 24 hours in a day, it always just feels shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And the main thing we have to take from this is that we feel like we have to always be constantly doing something every single second of the day. And it's horrible because you feel like you can't even sleep right. You feel like me sitting here, I should be like typing up an essay or something. And you're always being compared to people online that don't even mask or show their bad features. You only see their successes. You only see how a 5-year-old made $1 billion within one day. You need to understand that it's not very important to compare yourself to others. And finally, let's talk about the outcomes. Always the first one is burnout, which is just feeling mentally and physically uneasy and unready to get work done because you have stressed yourself too much and you've always had that motivation and you never were lazy to begin with, but because you all these stressors added up and now you're less productive because of that. We also have more physical stresses and health decline. We have many forms of you just maybe getting headaches, getting sick more easily, possibly even breaking bones. I've seen it happen. It's really unfortunate. um Health might be getting worse. You might start eating poorly, you might be stressing out more, you might be crying some more. Variety of things. You're playing it too safe at times. You might feel like you are destined for so much more. But the issue and the thing about college is that not even college, just life in general, is that you're kind of made to take risk. You're made to go above and beyond. You're made to not really do too much. If you keep yourself in that one box and you keep yourself comfortable, you're not really making yourself the best you're out to be. And while that is okay for some people, that might not be good for others, whether that's your own growth, maybe it's that growth for your family, your community, and so much more. Very similar to earlier, I won't talk too much about this identity crisis. You might not feel like you're black enough. You might not feel like you're smart enough, and you feel like you lose that sense of self that you hopefully will regain. And you honestly should not be tying any form of identity to any sort of metric or quantity. That should be something you find within yourself. And finally, the worst thing of all, sabotaging and betraying your own peers and friends. What I found through my time ultimately is the fact that, well, me personally, I think I'm very blessed at FSU and FAMU that we don't really have that culture. But there are many other schools that kind of have a more toxic culture where you are personally putting down other people so that you can make it out or you can be a lot better and you can be a lot more successful. And really, that is just not the ideal. And then the worst outcome out of all of this that you do not see on the slide is this constant feedback loop of negativity. All these outcomes here are going to always come back from these social pressures, that are always going to come back from these opportunity pressures, financial pressures, academic pressures, and it's going to keep on going on back and forth just like that until you understand where you're really at in your life and you really build yourself up to become something even more. Thank you guys for your heart and ears. I understand that might not be so many images, there might not have been so many statistics, but the really point of this conversation is to understand that this is a situation that many students feel, not just at the college level, but at the high school level, middle school level, elementary school level, maybe not even in college. At the first place, you might not share the same complexion that I am, but I can promise you there is at least one person in your life, or at least one point in your own life, where you have felt these similar situations and issues. And it is up to us as a people to really overcome these issues. So once again, thank you guys so much for having me here today. And yeah, that's about it.